The galaxy had always been ruled by mighty alien forces. Empires had risen and fallen, but no one had ever dared challenge the dominance of the Evathian Empire. For centuries, they had controlled everything, their fleets unbeatable, their weapons unmatched. The Evathians believed they were invincible. That was, until the day the humans arrived. It began with a simple warning, a brief, unsettling message. Alert, human war vessel approaching. The message was brief, yet it sent a wave of fear through the Evathian fleet. No one had expected humanity to become such a force. Humans, after all, were just another young species, barely emerging from their homeworld. Yet, in the past few decades, they had proven to be far more resilient than anyone could have predicted. Captain Kren of the Evathian fleet paced in his command center, staring at the massive holographic map of the galaxy. The red dot representing the human vessel was rapidly approaching. His hand trembled slightly as he activated the communications panel, trying to reach the higher command. "This cannot be real," Kren muttered to himself, his voice barely a whisper. Despite their advanced technology, the Evathians had never encountered anything like Earth. The humans had begun to make waves across the galaxy, defeating enemy fleets, taking on forces twice their size. They were quick, clever, and, most terrifying of all, willing to do anything to protect their people. As Kren waited for orders, he reflected on the stories he had heard. Humans were different. They didn't have the vast armies or enormous ships that other species had, but they had something far more dangerous, a relentless will to survive. The Evathians had underestimated them. A voice crackled through the speakers. "Captain Kren, this is High Command. Prepare for battle. The human vessel is headed straight for our capital. We must stop them at all costs." Kren's heart sank. The Evathians had long considered their capital to be impenetrable. It was the heart of their empire, surrounded by layers of defense and guarded by the best fleets in the galaxy. But this human vessel wasn't like any ship they had ever faced. The reports they had gathered spoke of a ship that could vanish from sensors, a vessel capable of sudden, unpredictable strikes. The humans didn't just fight to win, they fought to conquer. "They're coming. Prepare all defensive stations," Kren barked. The crew scrambled into action, but Kren couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was a nagging sense that the humans had more up their sleeves than anyone knew. As the minutes ticked by, the human vessel drew closer. The Evathians had no idea what to expect. They only knew that the humans had come to make their mark on the galaxy, and this was just the beginning. In the depths of the human ship, Captain Lyra stood on the bridge, her face hard and determined. The humans had never been as powerful as the alien forces they now faced, but they had something no one else did, a belief in their cause. The human race had survived countless obstacles, and this battle would be no different. "We're almost there," Lyra said to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Harold, who nodded grimly. "Prepare the crew. The moment we break through their defenses, we attack. No mercy." Lyra's orders were clear. There was no room for hesitation. The humans had come too far to turn back now. The Evathians had enslaved and conquered too many, and humanity was no longer willing to stand by and let them continue. Kren's mind raced as he watched the human ship grow larger on his display. It was sleek, almost eerie, blending with the darkness of space. There was no sign of traditional weapons or armaments. But Kren knew better than to underestimate the enemy. This wasn't just any ship. It was a symbol of everything the Evathians had taken for granted, and it was about to rip through their defenses like a knife through butter. "Activate all shields. Ready all weapons," Kren shouted. His hands were steady, but his mind was chaotic. For the first time in his life, he questioned everything. Was this the end of the Evathian Empire? Were the humans really that powerful? The human vessel struck first. A beam of light shot from its front, cutting through the void with terrifying precision. The Evathian shields flickered under the force, but they held. At least for now. "Return fire," Kren ordered, but his voice was drowned out by the deafening hum of the battle. The human ship continued to circle, using its speed and stealth to strike again and again. Every hit they made was more accurate than the last, and the Evathians couldn't keep up. As the battle raged on, the Evathian fleet began to crumble. They had once believed they were invincible, that no force could ever challenge them. But now, they were fighting for survival. Kren's mind whirled. He had always thought the Evathian Empire was untouchable, that they were the masters of the galaxy. But the humans had proven him wrong. They were relentless, driven by a desire for freedom that the Evathians could never understand. And now, that desire was consuming them all. As the final blow was struck, and the Evathian capital's defenses crumbled, Kren watched in disbelief. The humans had done the impossible. They had come, they had fought, and they had won. Humanity had now proven to the galaxy that they were not just survivors, they were conquerors. And the Evathians were no longer the most feared race in the galaxy. The galaxy had always been a dangerous place, but until recently, the human race had only been a small player in the grand scheme of things. The Evathian Empire, one of the most powerful forces in the universe, had controlled vast stretches of space for centuries. No one ever imagined that humanity could stand up to them. But the humans had a secret, something the Evathians never saw coming. When the warning came, it was brief but clear. Alert, human war vessel approaching. The Evathians, confident in their strength, didn't believe it was a real threat. They thought the humans were nothing more than a nuisance, a minor force in the galaxy. But as the human war vessel approached their borders, something about it felt different. There was a tension in the air, a feeling that something was about to change. Captain Nyros of the Evathian fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the approaching vessel. It was massive, far larger than anything they had seen from the humans before. But what struck Nyros the most was the complete lack of conventional weapons on the ship. There were no guns, no cannons, nothing that the Evathians could recognize as a weapon. The ship was sleek, almost elegant, and it seemed to move with a strange, unsettling grace. "Prepare to intercept," Nyros commanded. "Activate all weapons and shields. If they think they can sneak in without a fight, they're sorely mistaken." As the Evathian fleet moved into position, the human vessel didn't hesitate. It moved forward, straight towards them, as if it knew it would be met with resistance. There was no fear in the human crew, just a quiet determination. Captain Lyra stood at the helm of the warship, her eyes fixed on the Evathian fleet. She had led her crew through many battles before. She knew the stakes were higher than ever. "Ready the weapon," Lyra said quietly to her first officer, Lieutenant Harold. This is it. The Evathians had no idea what was coming. Lyra knew that their fleet would be ready to fight, but what they didn't know was that the real weapon wasn't what they could see, it was hidden deep within the ship. A secret weapon, something that had been developed in the shadows, far away from the prying eyes of the galaxy. Humanity had designed it to be their trump card, their final hope. The Evathians opened fire first, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts aimed directly at the human vessel. But Lyra remained calm. The human ship's shields flared brightly under the attack, but they held firm. The Evathians were confused. How could such a small, seemingly weak ship withstand their firepower? "Shields at 75%, Captain," Harold reported, his voice steady but full of concern. "We can't take much more of this." Lyra nodded. They had to act quickly. "Activate the hidden weapon," she said. Now, in the heart of the ship, deep within its core, a low hum began. The crew had been prepared for this moment, but even they could feel the weight of what was about to happen. The ship's engines glowed brighter, and a strange energy began to pulse through the hull. Outside, the Evathian fleet continued its assault, unaware that they were about to face something far more terrifying than they could imagine. Captain Nyros watched from his flagship, still baffled by the human ship's resilience. It seemed like the humans were just waiting, holding back their true power. He couldn't understand it. They had no visible weapons, no signs of advanced technology that could pose a serious threat. But something in his gut told him that this wasn't just another human ship. It was something far more dangerous. "Keep firing," Nyros commanded. "They're just stalling for time." But then, everything changed. The hidden weapon aboard the human vessel suddenly activated with a deafening roar. A beam of pure energy erupted from the ship, so bright that it was almost blinding. The Evathian fleet tried to react, but it was too late. The beam struck one of their capital ships with devastating force, tearing through its hull like paper. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash, sending debris scattering across the battlefield. Nyros watched in shock as the beam hit another ship, and then another. One by one, the Evathian vessels began to fall, their massive forms crumbling under the unrelenting power of the hidden weapon. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a weapon that could cut through even the strongest of their shields and defenses with ease. "What is that?" Nyros whispered to himself, unable to comprehend what was happening. The Evathians had always been the ones with the superior technology, the ones who could crush any opponent. But now, they were the ones who were being crushed. The humans weren't just fighting, they were winning. The Evathian fleet had no answer to this new weapon. As the remaining ships tried to flee, the human war vessel pursued, striking them down one by one. The once feared Evathian Empire was being dismantled before their very eyes. Lyra stood at the helm, watching the destruction unfold. She had known that the hidden weapon would give them an edge, but even she couldn't have predicted how quickly it would turn the tide. The Evathians had underestimated humanity. They had thought that the humans were just another race to conquer, another weak species to add to their growing empire. But the humans had kept their trump card hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the final Evathian ship was destroyed, Lyra allowed herself a brief moment of triumph. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that they were not just survivors, they were warriors, capable of taking down the most powerful forces in the universe. And the Evathians? They had learned the hard way that underestimating humans was the last mistake they would ever make. The vastness of space was silent, cold, and infinite. But beneath that silence, something was moving, something that shouldn't have been there. The Evathian Empire, known for its dominance and vast fleets, had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and they believed no one could challenge their power. Yet they had no idea that a new enemy was quietly making its way toward them, unnoticed and deadly. The Evathians were confident. Their fleets, large and well-equipped, were stationed at every key point across the galaxy. They had sensors that could detect anything, even the faintest trace of a ship. But what they didn't know was that humans, with their new technology, had found a way to make their ship disappear from all sensors. A human war vessel was closing in on the Evathian capital, but no one could see it. On board the Evathian command flagship, General Zarek stood in front of a large holographic map. His dark eyes scanned the display, but nothing appeared out of the ordinary. The sensor grids were quiet, and all the patrol ships had reported no suspicious activity. He felt safe, but there was a strange, growing unease that lingered in the back of his mind. "Nothing yet, General," said his officer, Lieutenant Vira, glancing up from her station. "The perimeter is clear. It's just another day." Zarek nodded, but remained unconvinced. He had fought in many battles, and something about today felt different. He couldn't shake the feeling that danger was lurking somewhere just beyond their reach, waiting to strike. Meanwhile, on the human warship, Captain Lyra stood at the helm. The ship was massive, yet its presence was undetectable. Its sleek stealth design allowed it to blend seamlessly with the blackness of space. Inside, the crew was calm but ready, their eyes focused on the mission ahead. They had a single goal: to infiltrate the heart of the Evathian Empire and strike at the core of their military power. "Captain, we're almost in range," said Lieutenant Harold, looking over his shoulder. Lyra nodded. "Keep the course steady. No mistakes." The silence in the control room was thick with anticipation. The human ship was on the move, but the Evathians had no idea it was there. The humans weren't going to announce their arrival with a massive battle or a loud assault. They were going to do something far more dangerous, something that would catch the Evathians completely off guard. On the Evathian flagship, General Zarek was still staring at the map. Nothing unusual had appeared, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Increase the patrols along the capital's borders," he ordered. "We can't afford to be careless." But just as the orders were being relayed, the first strike hit. Without warning, a massive explosion ripped through the outer perimeter of the Evathian defense network. The explosion sent shockwaves through the fleet, sending smaller ships spiraling out of control. The energy from the blast was so powerful that it scrambled the Avathian ship's systems, throwing them into disarray. "What was that?" Zarek shouted as alarms blared throughout the flagship. Lieutenant Vera quickly analyzed the situation. "It wasn't a missile or any conventional weapon, General. It came from nowhere. No radar, no detection. It's like it just appeared out of thin air." Zarek's face went pale. "Impossible," he muttered. "The humans don't have this kind of technology. They can't be here." Yet the evidence was clear. Another explosion rocked the fleet, this time even closer to the capital. The Avathians scrambled to respond, but there was nothing to aim at. The human ship, invisible to all detection systems, was attacking with precision. Each strike was carefully placed, crippling vital systems and weakening the Avathian defenses, all without revealing its position. "Status report." "Where are they?" Zarek demanded, his voice rising with panic. We can't see them, General," Vera replied, her voice tight with fear. "The ship isn't appearing on any sensors. It's as if it's hidden." As more explosions rocked the Avathian fleet, the true horror of the situation became clear. The humans weren't fighting by their rules. They weren't going to engage in a full-scale battle. They were using stealth and precision, targeting critical points, and leaving nothing in their wake but destruction. Inside the human warship, Lyra was focused on the mission. Her crew worked efficiently, targeting key systems on the Avathian fleet with pinpoint accuracy. Every strike was calculated, and every second was crucial. They had to weaken the enemy without revealing themselves, drawing them in before making their final move. "Get ready," Lyra said, her voice steady. "It's almost time." Meanwhile, on the Avathian flagship, General Zarek was struggling to regain control. The fleet was in chaos, with smaller ships trying to regroup and larger ships losing power. It was clear that the humans had the advantage, and yet they were still invisible. There was no way to retaliate, no way to fight back. "This is madness," Zarek shouted. "We need to know where they are. Send everything to scan the area. I don't care what it takes. Find them." But no matter what the Avathians tried, they couldn't detect the human vessel. It was like a shadow, slipping through the cracks of their vast empire, striking when they least expected it. The human warship moved effortlessly from target to target, its crew calm and composed as they dismantled the heart of the Avathian fleet. At last, Lyra gave the command to reveal their position. "Target the capital. Prepare for the final strike." The human ship emerged from the darkness, its engines glowing bright as it launched its final attack. The Avathian defenses, now severely weakened, had no chance. The capital fell in a matter of minutes, and the once unshakable Avathian Empire was left reeling from an attack they had never seen coming. General Zarek watched in horror as his empire crumbled. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had attacked silently, invisibly, and with ruthless precision. And now there was nothing left but the ruins of a once great empire. The silence of space returned, but this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with the echoes of a warning. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The galaxy was a vast expanse of stars and distant worlds, ruled by an unshakable power, the Avathian Empire. Their fleets were unstoppable, their weapons unmatched, and their control over the galaxy seemed absolute. But there was one thing they did not account for: human ambition. A small, seemingly insignificant species from a distant planet had risen against them, and now they were making their mark. Captain Lyra stood on the bridge of the human warship, her hands clenched tightly around the armrests. The mission was clear: infiltrate the heart of the Avathian Empire, disrupt their leadership, and bring their mighty fleets to their knees. But there was one thing Lyra didn't expect: the betrayal that would change everything. The humans had been allies with a faction of Avathian rebels for months. This group of Avathians had grown disillusioned with their empire's cruelty and had reached out to the humans, promising to help overthrow their corrupt rulers. The humans, eager to weaken their enemies, agreed to the alliance. Together, they would strike at the heart of the Avathian Empire, bringing it to its knees. But as Lyra stood at the helm, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The rebellion had been too easy to trust. The Avathian rebels had always claimed to be the underdogs, working from the shadows to dismantle the Empire. Yet their actions felt far too coordinated. "Captain," said Lieutenant Harold, his voice filled with tension, "we've received a transmission from the Evathian rebel leader, Karan. He says the time has come. We move in at dawn." Lyra's heart raced. It was the moment they had all been waiting for, the final strike against the Evathians. But deep inside, she felt a gnawing unease. She had trusted Corin, but something about him didn't sit right. Perhaps it was the way he always kept his plans vague, or the way he seemed to always be one step ahead of them. Whatever it was, it left her uncertain. "Prepare the crew," Lyra said, pushing her doubts aside. "We don't turn back now." As dawn broke across the distant planet, where they were to meet the Evathian rebels, the human ship glided silently through space, its engines humming softly. The mission was going smoothly until they arrived. The rebel base was quiet, too quiet. There were no signs of resistance, no movement. No Evathian ships in orbit, no signs of the massive fleet Karan had promised to help them destroy. Lyra frowned, her instincts on high alert. Something wasn't right. "Something's wrong," she muttered. She turned to her crew. "Where is everyone?" "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from Karan," Lieutenant Harold said, his face pale. Lyra activated the comms. "This is Captain Lyra. What's going on? Where are the forces you promised us?" Karan's image appeared on the screen, his face shadowed and unreadable. "I'm sorry, Captain, but this is where our alliance ends." Before Lyra could respond, the screen went black. Her heart sank. A cold realization washed over her. This wasn't an alliance. It was a trap. The Evathian rebels had been playing them all along. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. The crew scrambled to their stations, but it was too late. A massive fleet of Evathian ships, hidden in the dark side of the planet, emerged from their cloaking devices. They had been waiting for the right moment to strike. "Captain, we're surrounded," Harold shouted, his voice filled with panic. The Evathian fleet descended like a storm, their weapons charging with deadly intent. Lyra's eyes burned with fury as she realized the full extent of the betrayal. Corin had never intended to help them. He had used the humans to weaken the Evathians and then turned on them when the time was right. "We have to fight back," Lyra said, gritting her teeth. "Prepare for battle." But the human warship was outnumbered. The Evathian fleet was far larger, and with Karan's betrayal, they were now facing two enemies, an entire empire, and the rebels they thought they could trust. The battle raged on. Energy blasts filled the space around them as the human ship weaved and dodged the incoming fire. The crew fought with everything they had, but the odds were against them. Lyra's mind raced. She needed to find a way out. But the betrayal had left them with no escape. "We can't hold out much longer," Harold shouted as another blast rocked the ship. Lyra's gaze hardened. She refused to let her crew go down without a fight. "Signal all ships in the fleet. We fight until the last ship is standing. We will not fall here." But then, just as all hope seemed lost, a voice echoed through the ship's comm system. It was Karan. "Captain Lyra, I know you don't understand," Corin's voice said, calm and distant. "But this was never about you or your crew. It was about the future of the galaxy. The Evathian Empire must fall, and you were the catalyst for it. I knew you would come. I knew you would weaken them. And now I will finish the job." Lyra's eyes burned with rage as she realized the full scope of the betrayal. Coran had used them from the very beginning, knowing that the humans would help dismantle the Evathian Empire only to turn on them when the time was right. "You'll regret this, Karan," Lyra hissed into the comm. The final blow came swiftly. The Evathian fleet unleashed a devastating assault, and the human ship was crippled beyond repair. The lights flickered, and the hum of the engines slowed. Lyra could feel the weight of the defeat pressing down on her. She had trusted the wrong people. But in that moment of despair, a glimmer of hope appeared. A fleet of human reinforcements, alerted by the signal Lyra had sent earlier, arrived just in time to prevent total annihilation. Lyra, though battered, stood tall. The fight was far from over. Betrayed though she was, she would not let Corrin's treachery define their fate. The war for the galaxy had just entered a new chapter and humanity would be ready. The war had raged for years. The Evathian Empire, once unchallenged in its dominance, now found itself on the brink of collapse. The humans, a small and underestimated species, had proven to be the Empire's greatest threat. What began as a series of small rebellions had grown into a full-scale war, with every planet in the galaxy caught in the struggle for freedom. Captain Lyra stood on the bridge of her ship. The battle for freedom had cost her and her crew everything. They had lost friends, family, and allies. Yet, they had not given up. Despite the overwhelming power of the Evathian fleet, they had fought on, driven by the belief that the galaxy deserved to be free. "Captain, we've received new intel," said Lieutenant Harold, his voice breaking through Lyra's thoughts. Lyra turned her gaze to the screen. "What's the news?" "The Evathian fleet is gathering at the edge of the Larka system. They're preparing for a massive offensive. It looks like they're trying to crush the final human resistance once and for all." Lyra clenched her fists. She had always known that this moment would come, the moment when the Evathian Empire would unleash its full fury to extinguish the light of rebellion. But she wasn't afraid. She couldn't afford to be. The fate of the galaxy rested in the hands of those who were willing to fight. "Prepare the fleet. We're going to give them everything we've got," she said, her voice steady, but with an edge of determination. As the human ships prepared for battle, the Evathian Empire was already mobilizing its massive forces. Their armada was vast, made up of countless warships, each one bristling with weapons and shield. They had one objective: to end the human rebellion once and for all. General Zarek, leader of the Evathian fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship. His cold eyes scanned the star charts, plotting their course. He had been preparing for this final battle for months. The humans had been a thorn in the Empire's side, but he knew that this would be the end of their struggle. "We have them cornered," Zarek said, his voice calm but full of cold certainty. "Prepare for the final assault. We will wipe them from the stars." But despite his confidence, Zarek couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The humans had proven time and again that they were not to be underestimated. They fought with a fierceness and determination that made them unpredictable, even to him. "We can't take any chances," Zarek added, his voice hard. "Increase the firepower on all ships. We finish this today."